policy and national security policy is the need to reestablish the old-fashioned principle that politics ought to stop at the water's edge. When I was in the United States Congress, I worked with former President Reagan to modernize our strategic weaponry and to pursue arms control in a responsible way. When I was in the United States Senate, I worked with former President Bush, your father, and was one of only a few Democrats in the Senate to support the Persian Gulf War. I think bipartisanship is a national asset, and we have to find ways to reestablish it in foreign policy and national security policy.
In a word, do you have a problem with that?
Yeah, why haven't they done it in 7 years?
New subject, new question. Should the voters of this election, Vice President Gore, see this on domestic area, in the domestic area, as a major choice between competing political philosophies?
Oh, absolutely.
I have absolutely no idea. So I'm going to run for president, and I'm going to use the IDK card all the time. I didn't even understand really what was going on in that question. This guy is going to try to answer this. My thing is, I have a cabinet of 15 righteous guys that I think are righteous that can answer that question. The American people are going to vote in a celebrity into my cabinet every month or every 2 months. That's a question that I don't even understand the question, let alone how to answer it. Let's see what this guy says.
This is a very important moment in the history of our country. Look, we've got the biggest surpluses in all of American history. Well, the key question that has to be answered in this election is, will we use that prosperity wisely in a way that benefits all of our people and doesn't go just to the few? Almost half of all the tax cut benefits, as I said, under Governor Bush's plan, go to the wealthiest 1%. I think we have to make the right and responsible choices. I think we have to invest in education, protecting the environment, health care, a prescription drug benefit that goes to all seniors, not just to the poor, under Medicare, not relying on HMOs and insurance companies. I think that we have to help parents and strengthen families by dealing with the kind of inappropriate entertainment material that families are just heartsick that their children are exposed to. I think we have got to have welfare.
What the heck? What is that? What does this have to do with, I think, the president's job? The president doesn't do this. We need liberty in this country. Stay out of my kid's life, bro. Just get the fuck out of my life. Let's go back. Listen to this shit.
Parents and strengthen families by dealing with the kind of inappropriate entertainment material. As I said, under Governor Bush's plan, go to the wealthiest 1%. I think we have to make the right and responsible choices. I think we have to invest in education,
No, we don't. Fuck, we're not investing in education. The education is a joke. Department of Education should be abolished. Fuck that. I'm going to have Peter Schiff in my economic corner. I'm not going to say we're ever going to listen to him, but he doesn't give a fuck. If Peter Schiff is alive, which he probably won't be, but 2058, when I run, if he's alive, I'm probably going to take him. But we're not going to listen to him. But yeah, the Department of Education needs to stop. We need lower prices in college, no more student loans.
Protecting the environment, health care.
Protecting the environment, fuck that. I'm Christian. It's all a hoax. If God wants it hot, it gets hot. If he wants it cold, it gets cold.
A prescription drug benefit that
fuck prescription drugs, pharmacia.
Goes to all seniors, not just to the poor, under Medicare, not relying on HMOs and insurance companies. I think that we have to help parents and strengthen families by dealing with the kind of inappropriate entertainment material.
No, fuck this. What you think is inappropriate is, religion, Christ. Yeah, fuck you. No, we love Jesus.
Families are just
get the fuck out of my entertainment.
Sick that their children are exposed to.
What you think is inappropriate.
I think we have got to have welfare reform taken to the next stage. I
love welfare.
That we have got to balance the budget every single year.
No, fuck that. Run up the debt, borrow money, print the money, help the poor, do it in a calculated way. Balanced budget, yes, but we're definitely going to have inflation. If you want to protect yourself from inflation, you can buy crypto, you can buy gold and silver, But when it comes to money supply, we're going to tax the money supply by printing money. Yeah.
Pay down the national debt, and in fact,
No, we're not paying down the national debt. We're going to inflate it. We're going to send the money overseas. They're going to send us all their stuff. They're going to have a bunch of debt. We're going to inflate the debt away. Now their purchasing power is gone. And if they're mad about it, we have all the guns. It doesn't fucking matter.
under my proposal,
This guy's a fucking moron.
the national debt will be completely eliminated.
The national debt will be completely eliminated. You're a fucking moron. You're a piece of shit. This. No wonder why Bush won. This guy's a fucking dumbass. You're all fucking stupid.
By the year 2012, I think we need to put Medicare and Social Security in a lockbox. The governor will not put Medicare in a lockbox. I don't think it should be used as a piggy bank for other programs. I think it needs to be moved out of the budget and protected. I'll veto anything that takes money out of Social Security
That's interesting.
or Medicare for anything other than Social Security or Medicare. Now, the priorities are just very different. I'll give you a couple of examples. For every new dollar that I propose for spending on health care, Governor Bush spends $3 for a tax cut for the wealthiest 1%. Now, for
Go back, sorry, my mind went to Hillary Clinton
than Social
being a
Security
bitch.
or Medicare. Now, the
And for those of
priorities.
you wondering about the swearing, God wants me to use swearing in these last days. Every swear word that I've ever said has a few extra letters attached to it. It's not the devil's weapons, it's Eric Smythe's weapons. Suck my dick.
They're just very different. I'll give you a couple of examples.
DIKC,
For every new
KKC.
dollar that I propose for spending on health care, Governor Bush spends $3 for a tax cut for the wealthiest 1%. Now, for every dollar that I propose to spend on education, he spends $5 on a tax cut for the wealthiest 1%.
I wonder why we need tax cuts. It's so that people will actually fucking get off their fucking out of their fucking house. They're rich. They don't need to work. If the taxes are high enough, they won't. If the taxes are 0%, oh shit, they might go out and do shit because they know they're going to get paid. This guy wants to steal their money. Top 1%, they built this country. Fuck you, bitch. Bush has my vote so far. I haven't even heard Bush vote. I mean, fuck Gore. Yeah, Blood and Gore. Why didn't Bush say that? My opponent's name is Blood and Gore. We got Blood and Gore in store if we fucking tax the top 1%. Let's tax the top 1% hardest workers. You want to tax Coca-Cola 90% once they hit $1 billion? Or whatever your dumbass fantasy is? Fuck you. They're not going to make Coke anymore. What, we're going to work for 10 cents on the dollar? And we're going to work for the government? Fuck you. He says it like it's a bad thing.
Those are very
Because he knows the voters are idiots and they'll eat it up.
clear differences.
Governor,
I agree, there are clear differences.
1 minute.
Man's practicing
Get him,
fuzzy
George.
math again. There's differences. Under Vice President Gore's plan, he's going to grow the federal government in the largest increase since Lyndon Baines Johnson in 1965. And we're talking about a massive government, folks. We're talking about adding to or increasing 200 new programs, 200 programs, 20,000 new bureaucrats. Imagine how many IRS agents it's going to take to be able to figure out his targeted tax cut for the middle class that excludes 50 million Americans. There is a huge difference in this campaign. He says he's going to give you tax cuts. 50 million of you won't receive it. He said in his speech he wants to make sure the right people get tax relief. That's not the role of a president to decide right and wrong. Everybody who pays taxes ought to get tax relief. After my plan is in place, the wealthiest Americans will pay a higher percentage of taxes than they do today. And the poorest of Americans, 6 million families, 7 million people, won't pay any tax at all. It is a huge difference.
Hallelujah.
It's the difference between big, exploding federal government that wants to think on your behalf and a plan that meets priorities and liberates working people to be able to make decisions on your own.
Get him, George.
Let me just say, Jim, you haven't heard the governor deny these numbers. He's called them phony, he's called them fuzzy, but the fact remains, almost 30% of his proposed tax
I hate
cut
this guy.
goes only to Americans that make
My
more
Holy
than
Spirit doesn't
$1
like this
million per year.
this.
More money goes to the, can I have a rebuttal here?
Sure, but I just want to see if he buys that.
No, let me just tell you what the facts are. The facts are, after my plan, the wealthiest of Americans pay more taxes of the percentage of the whole than they do today. Secondly, if you're a family of four making $50,000 in Massachusetts, you get a 50% tax cut. Let me give you one example. The Strunk family in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I campaigned with them the other day. They make $51,000 combined income. They pay about $3,800 in taxes, or $3,500 in taxes. Under my plan, they get $1,800 of tax relief. Under Vice President Gore's plan, they give $145 of tax relief. Now, you tell me who stands on the side of the rich. You asked the Strunks. You asked the Strunks.
If I could get my
whose plan it makes more sense, and there's a difference of opinion. He would rather spend the Strunks $1,800, and I would rather the Strunks spend your own money.
You say it that way, Vice President?
No, I don't, and I'm not going to go to calling names on his facts. I'm just going to tell you what the real facts are. The analysis that he's talking about leaves out more than half of the tax cuts that I have proposed. And if you just add the numbers up, he still hasn't denied it. He spends more money on a tax cut for the wealthiest 1% than all of his new proposals for prescription drugs, health care, education, and national defense combined. Now, those are the wrong priorities. $665 billion over 10 years for the wealthiest 1%. Now, and as I said, almost 30% of it goes to Americans that make more than $1 million per year. Every middle-class family is eligible for a tax cut under my proposal. Let me give you some specific examples. I believe that college tuition up to $10,000 a year ought to be tax deductible so middle-class families can choose to send their children to college. I believe that all seniors should be able to choose their own doctors and get prescription drugs from their own pharmacists, with Medicare paying half the bill. I believe that parents ought to have more choices with charter schools and public school choice to send their kids always to a safe school. I think we need to make education the #1 priority in our country and treat teachers like the professionals that they are, and that's why I have made it the #1 priority in my budget, not a tax cut for the wealthy.
Yeah, let me talk about tax cuts one more time. This is a man whose plan excludes 50 million Americans.
Not so.
He doesn't believe that, well, take for example the marriage penalty. If you itemize...
Part of it's really boring, and the other thing is, one guy calls the other guy out for being full of shit, and he probably is, and I don't know who to believe.
Your tax return, you get no marriage penalty relief.
And the American people, they don't know shit. No one's going to look up that shit. And we don't even know what I don't even really know
chooses
enough about it.
He decides who the right people are. It's a fundamental difference of opinion. I want my fellow Americans to hear one more time. We're going to spend $25 trillion. We're going to collect $25 trillion of revenue over the next 10 years. And we're going to project it to spend $21 trillion. Now, surely we can send 5% of that back to you all who pay the bills.
Amen.
There is a problem. I want to say something, Jim. Wait a minute. Okay. This man's been disparaging my plan with all this Washington fuzzy math.
Right.
I want you to hear a problem we've got in America. If you're a single mother making $22,000 a year and you've got 2 children,
right, under
this tax code, for every additional dollar you make, you pay a higher marginal rate on that dollar than someone making $200,000 a year, and that is not right.
Amen.
And so my plan drops the rate from 15% to 10% and increases the child credit from $500 to $1,000 to make the code more fair for everybody, not just a few, not just a handful. Everybody who pays taxes ought to get some relief.
All right, having cleared that up, we're going to a new question. Education. Governor Bush, both of you have promised dramatically to change dramatically public education in this country, but of the public money spent on education, only 6% of it is federal money.
Right.
You want to change 100% of public education with 6% of the money. Is that possible?
Well, all right, I'm going to try to answer this question. I bombed on the last one. If I got the last one in the middle of a debate, I would just make a joke, and I'd say, oh, what you said is really, I take one word, I say, you know what that reminds me of? Dogecoin. And the fucking Dogecoin people, I get all the Dogecoin votes. Everyone would start busting up. And I'd say, then I name someone in my cabinet. I say, he knows about it, he knows about it. And then I'd have him debate my other friend. And then if I decided the debate was close, I'd ask my friend Philip to flip a coin over the phone. And then I would trust him with the result. He would tell me the result. I would take his policies and run it as if it was my own. Oh yeah, Dogecoin to the moon. And everyone would cheer. Because they've known me in my campaigning. If I don't know an answer, just be hilarious and entertaining. You know? It's not the end of the world. Just fuck shit up. We only got so much time up there, and politics has been a joke since before 2000. I mean, and everyone wants to vote for me. Everybody wants to be in there. I'm the only one with the Holy Ghost. Really. But I'm going to try to answer this one.
Education. Governor Bush.
Like he's asking me. I'm up here 2058. Let's just say he asked me this question. I'm doing the debates. Here we go. You got this, Eric.
Both of you have promised dramatically to change.
Stop it right there. No, I don't promise shit. Proverbs 27:1. Do not boast about tomorrow. We saw what happened with fucking Barack fucking Hussein Obama. The Antichrist, according to many. He had campaign promises. He didn't do shit. He went to war right when he got in. Oh, change of plans. LOL. My political opponent makes promises. I don't. I'll do whatever the flying fox I want. No. I'll do whatever the flying fox my cabinet wants. And if you want to influence me, send me some celebrities that will influence me. Because I just spent 1,400 hours watching Mormonism and anti-Mormonism, and I flip back and forth over and over again. You don't think you could influence me? You know, there's this ongoing debate about, freedom, free will. Paul Washer. Have you heard of him? Let's continue.
Dramatically public education in this country, but of the public money spent on education, only 6% of it is federal.
Sorry, go back.
Handful. Everybody
right,
who pays taxes ought to get some relief.
All right, having cleared that up, we're going to a new question. Education. Governor Bush, both of you have promised dramatically to change dramatically public education in this country.
Well, this was an easy answer. I just go full Ron Paul. I'm going to get rid of the Department of Education. It's gone.
But of the public money spent on education, only 6% of it is federal money.
Right.
You want to change 100% of public education with 6% of the money. Is that possible?
Well, I tell you, we can make a huge difference by saying if you receive federal money, we expect you to show results. Let me give you a story about public ed, if I might, Jim. It's about KIPP Academy.
It's called a conditional gift.
In Houston, Texas. It's a charter school run by some people from Teach for America. Young folks that said, well, I'm going to do something good for my country. I want to teach. A guy named Michael runs the school. It's a school full of so-called at-risk children. So it's how we unfortunately label certain children. It means basically they can't learn. It's a school of strong discipline and high standards. It's one of the best schools in Houston. And here are the key ingredients: high expectations, strong accountability. What Michael says is, don't put all these rules on us. Just let us teach and hold us accountable for every grade. And that's what we do. And as a result, these young, mainly Hispanic youngsters, are some of the best learners in Houston, Texas. That's my vision for public education all around America. Many of you viewers don't know, but Laura and I sent our girls to public school. We went to Austin High School, and many of the public schools are meeting the call. But unfortunately, a lot of schools are trapping children in schools that just won't teach and won't change. So here's the role of the federal government. One is to change Head Start into a reading program. Two is to say that if you want to access reading money, you can do so, because the goal is for every single child to learn to read. There must be K through 2 diagnostic tools. There's teacher training money available. Three, we've got to consolidate federal programs to free districts, to free the schools, to encourage innovators like Michael, to let schools reach out beyond the confines of the current structure.
Okay,
to recruit,
well, can you say it in a way that's not
teach
fucking
for
boring
the
as fuck?
children type teachers.
It's nice that you know
we're
all
going to
this
say
shit.
if you receive federal money, measure third grade, fourth grade,
This
fifth
is the
grade,
guy
sixth
that
grade,
I
seventh
have
grade,
in my
eighth grade, and
cabinet.
show us.
I'd have George Bush as my 15th guy. Hey, do you know a bunch of boring shit? Okay. We need to learn some boring shit today. He talked to me, I'd make it charismatic. This guy's not charismatic enough. Is he more charismatic than Gore? Yeah, sure. Blood and gore? Fuck yeah. Human beings are an abomination.
Whether or not children are learning to read and write and add and subtract, and if so, there'll be a bonus plan, but if not, instead of continuing to subsidize failure,
That's a really good one. If the kids get A's, you give them more money.
money will go to the parents, so the parent can choose a different public school. The federal money attributed to the child will go to the parent for public school or charter school or tutorial or Catholic school. What I care about is children, and so does Michael Feinberg. And you know what? It can happen in America with the right kind
Care
of
about children. That's very important. Matthew 18:3. And also Matthew 18:6. Protect the little children.
leadership.
Vice President Gore?
Look, we agree on a couple of things on education. I strongly support new accountability, so does Governor Bush. I strongly support local control, so does Governor Bush. I'm in favor of testing as a way of measuring performance. Every school district, have every state test the children. I've also proposed a voluntary national test in the 4th grade and 8th grade. And a form of testing that the governor has not endorsed. I think that all new teachers ought to be tested, including in the subjects that they teach. We've got to recruit 100,000 new teachers,
That's
and
a
I
good
have
idea.
budgeted for that. We've got to
I don't know what this has to do with politics. It's such a minor issue. It's just, what the fuck? I want to go to war with North Korea and chop off Kim Jong-un's head and save North Korea. You know? I want to tell Putin to stop being a dictator. And he'll say no, and I'll say, okay, that's fine. But this world is so wicked. And we're talking about, I don't know, weird shit.
reduce the class size so that the student who walks in has more one-on-one time with the teacher. We ought to have universal preschool, and we ought to make college tuition tax deductible up to $10,000 a year. I'd like to tell you a quick story. I got a letter today as I left Sarasota, Florida. I'm here with a group of 13 people from around the country who helped me prepare, and we had a great time. But 2 days ago, we ate lunch at a restaurant, and the guy who served us lunch got me a letter today. His name is Randy Ellis. He has a 15-year-old daughter named Kaylee, who's in Sarasota High School. Her science class was supposed to be for 24 students. She is the 36th student in that classroom. Sent me a picture of her in the classroom. They can't squeeze another desk in for her, so she has to stand during class. I want the federal government, consistent with local control and new accountability, to make improvement of our schools the #1 priority, so Kaylee will have a desk and can sit down in a classroom where she can learn.
All right, so having heard the two of you, voters have just heard the two of you, what's the difference? What's the choice between the two of you on education?
Well, the difference is there is no new accountability measures in Vice President Gore's plan. He says he's for voluntary testing. You can't have voluntary testing. You must have mandatory testing. You must say that if you receive money, you must show us whether or not children are learning to read and write and add and subtract. That's the difference. You may claim you've got mandatory testing, but you don't, Mr. Vice President, and that is a huge difference. Testing is the cornerstone of reform. You know how I know? Because it's the cornerstone of reform in the state of Texas. Republicans and Democrats came together and asked the question, what can we do to make our public education the best in the country? And we've done a long way working together to do so. And the cornerstone is to have strong accountability in return for money and in return for flexibility. We're going to ask you to show us whether or not, and we ask to post the results on the internet. We encourage parents to take a look at the comparative results of schools. We've got a strong charter school movement that I signed the legislation to get started in the state of Texas. I believe if we find poor children trapped in schools that won't teach, we need to free the parents. I think we need to expand education savings accounts. It's something the vice presidential running mate supports. No, there's big differences of opinion. He won't support freeing local districts from the strings of federal money.
All right. How do you see the differences?
Well, first of all, I do have mandatory testing. I think the governor may not have heard what I said clearly. The voluntary national test is in addition to the mandatory testing that we require of states, all schools, all school districts, students themselves, and required teacher testing, which goes a step farther than Governor Bush has been willing to go. Here are a couple of differences, though, Jim. Governor Bush is in favor of vouchers, which take taxpayer money away from public schools and give them to private schools that are not accountable for how the money is used and don't have to take all applicants. Now, private schools play a great role in our society. All of our children have gone to both public schools and private schools. But I don't think private schools should have a right to take taxpayer money away from public schools at a time when Kaylee Ellis is standing in that classroom. Let me give you another example. I went to a school in Dade County, Florida, where the facilities are so overcrowded, the children have to eat lunch in shifts, with the first shift for lunch starting at 9:30 in the morning. Look, this is a funding crisis all around the country. There are fewer parents of school-age children in the vote as a percentage of the voting population, and there's the largest generation of students ever. We're in an information age when learning is more important than ever. 90% of our kids go to public schools. We have to make it the #1 priority. Modernize our schools, reduce the class size, recruit new teachers, give every child a chance to learn with one-on-one time in a quality, high-quality, safe school. If it's a failing school, shut it down and reopen it under a new principal with a turnaround team of specialists, the way Governor Jim Hunt does in North Carolina. Here's another difference. The governor, if it's a failing school, would leave the children in that failing school for 3 years and then give a little bit of money to the parents, a down payment on a down payment for private school tuition, and pretend that that would be enough for them to go out and go to a private school.
Move
it's
on.
an
30,
illusion.
Well, wait a minute.
30 seconds, Governor. Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, most good governance is at the state level. See, here's the mentality. I'm going to make the state do this. I'm going to make the state do that. All I'm saying is if you spend money, show us results, and test every year, which you do not do, Mr. Vice President. You do not test every year. You can say you do in the cameras, but you don't, unless you've changed your plan here on the stage. Secondly, and you need to test every year, because that's where you determine whether or not children are progressing to excellence. Secondly, one of the things that we've got to be careful about in politics is throwing money at a system that has not yet been reformed. More money is needed, and I spend more money. But step one is to make sure we reform the system, to have the system in place that leaves no child behind, to stop this business about asking, gosh, how old are you? If you're 10, we're going to put you here. If we're 12, we'll put you here. And start asking the question, what do you know? And if you don't know what you're supposed to know, we'll make sure you do early before it is too late.
New question. We've been talking about a lot of specific issues. It's often said that in the final analysis, about 90% of being the President of the United States is dealing with the unexpected, not with issues that came up in the campaign. Vice President Gore, can you point to a decision, an action you have taken that illustrates your ability to handle the unexpected, the crisis under fire, etc.?
When the action in Kosovo was dragging on and we were searching for a solution to the problem, our country had defeated the adversary on the battlefield without a single American life being lost in combat, but the dictator Milosevic was hanging on. I invited the former Prime Minister of Russia to my house and took a risk in asking him to get personally involved, along with the head of Finland, to go to Belgrade and to take a set of proposals from the United States that would constitute basically a surrender by Serbia, but it was a calculated risk that paid off. Now, I could probably give you some other examples of decisions over the last 24 years. I have been in public service for 24 years, Jim, and throughout all that time, the people I have fought for have been the middle-class families. And I have been willing to stand up to powerful interests like the the big insurance companies, the drug companies, the HMOs, the oil companies. They have good people and they play constructive roles sometimes, but sometimes they get too much power. I cast my lot with the people, even when it means that you have to stand up to some powerful interests who are trying to turn the policies and the laws to their advantage. That's you can see it in this campaign. The big drug companies support Governor Bush's prescription drug proposal. They oppose mine because they don't want to get Medicare involved because they're afraid that Medicare will negotiate lower prices for seniors who currently pay the highest prices of all.
Governor Bush?
Well, I've been standing up to big Hollywood, big trial lawyers. What was the question? It was about emergencies, wasn't it?
Well, it was about, well, yeah, okay.
You know, as governor, one of the things you have to deal with is catastrophe. I can remember the fires that swept Parker County, Texas. I remember the floods that swept our state. I remember going down to Del Rio, Texas. And I've got to pay the administration a compliment. James Lee Witt of FEMA has done a really good job of working with governors during times of crisis. But that's the time when you're tested not only, it's time you test your mettle. It's the time to test your heart when you see people whose lives have been turned upside down. It broke my heart to go to the flood scene in Del Rio where a fellow and his family just got completely uprooted. The only thing I knew to do was to get aid as quickly as possible, which we did with state and federal help, and to put my arms around the man and his family and cry with him. But that's what governors do. Governors are oftentimes found in the front line of catastrophic situations.
New question. There can be all kinds of crises, Governor. Question for you. There could be a crisis, for instance, in the financial area.
Yeah.
The stock market could take a tumble. There could be a failure of a major financial institution. What is your general attitude toward government intervention in such events?
Well, it depends, obviously, but what I would do first and foremost is I would get in touch with the Federal Reserve Chairman, Alan Greenspan, to find out all the facts and all the circumstances. I would have my Secretary of Treasury be in touch with the financial centers, not only here but at home. I would make sure that key members of Congress were called in to discuss the gravity of the situation, and I would come up with a game plan to deal with it. That's what governors end up doing. We end up being problem solvers. We come up with practical, common sense solutions for problems that we're confronted with. And in this case, in case of a financial crisis, I would gather all the facts before I made the decision as to what the government ought or ought not to do.
Vice President Gore?
Yeah, first I want to compliment the governor on his response to those fires and floods in Texas. I accompanied James Lee Witt down to Texas when those fires broke out, and FEMA has been a major flagship project of our reinventing government efforts, and I agree, it works extremely well now. On the international financial crises that come up, my friend Bob Rubin, former Secretary of Treasury, is here. He's a very close advisor to me and a great friend in all respects. I have had a chance to work with him and Alan Greenspan and others on the crisis following the collapse of the Mexican peso, when the Asian financial crisis raised the risk of worldwide recession that could affect our economy. And now, of course, the euro's value has been dropping, but seems to be under control. But it started for me in the last 8 years when I had the honor of casting the tie-breaking vote to end the old economic plan here at home and put into place a new economic plan that has helped us to make some progress, 22 million new jobs and the greatest prosperity ever, but it's not good enough, and my attitude is you ain't seen nothing yet. We need to do more and better.
So, Governor, would you agree there is no basic difference here on intervening, the federal government intervening in what might be seen by others to be a private financial crisis if it's that severe?
No, there's no difference on that. There is a difference, though, as to what the economy has meant. I think the economy has meant more for the Gore and Clinton folks than the Gore and Clinton folks have meant for the economy. I think most of the economic growth that has taken place is a result of ingenuity and hard work and entrepreneurship And that's the role of governments, to encourage that. But in terms of the response to the question, no.
Okay.
Can I comment on that?
You may.
See, you know, I think that the American people deserve credit for the great economy that we have, and it's their ingenuity. I agree with that. But you know, they were working pretty hard 8 years ago, and they had ingenuity 8 years ago. The difference is we've got a new policy, and instead of concentrating on tax cuts mostly for the wealthy, I want tax cuts for the middle class families, and I want to continue the prosperity and make sure that it enriches not just the few, but all of our families. Look, we have gone from the biggest deficits to the biggest surpluses. We've gone from a triple-dip recession during the previous 12 years to a tripling of the stock market. Instead of high unemployment, we've got the lowest African American and lowest Latino unemployment rates ever in history, and 22 million new jobs. But it's not good.